Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the opportunity to take some time to talk briefly about Senate File 4091. From my vantage point, I think it's important for the public to realize, and for all those in the chamber, Mr. President, to realize that this is, in essence, a combination of bills, but from my perspective, a jobs bill. And the jobs bill is very disappointing to say and know that this bill doesn't meet the moment. I remember when this particular bill came up before the Jobs Committee, and it was actually published on, if my memory serves me correctly, around the 1st of April. And I felt some way about it because I thought that there was going to be more to it. And when I look at this bill, it's hard to see that when the state has a surplus of more than $9 billion, we are leaving our potential workforce, small businesses, behind, and literally there's no investment. If you look at the amount of money that's been put in this particular bill, is roughly, at least for the job portion, $225,000. Now think about that. $225,000 when we have a state surplus of over $9 billion. And you heard the author of the jobs bill articulate with some clarity all the things that we did before and saying this is not a budget year. And he wanted to make sure that he was highlighting those things in order to say, I want you to look in the past, but I don't want you to look at what we're doing right now, because I want to justify what we're doing right now. This bill also, Mr. President, ignores the state demographer who testified in the Finance Committee that Minnesota has a number of communities, specifically communities of color, still sitting on the sidelines, and our inability or unwillingness to invest in these communities would jeopardize Minnesota's standing or make Minnesota less competitive nationally, regionally, and globally. In fact, what she was just saying, if we don't do the work that it takes and be insightful and thoughtful, the great state of Minnesota as we know it will be left behind, because we are living in a very competitive world. People are competing for employees. They are competing for small business owners, competing for budding entrepreneurs. This bill doesn't meet the moment. And I'm going to give you this analogy. Some of those who might be a little more mature than me will understand exactly what I'm saying. So this bill reminds me of an old Wendy's commercial. And remember that commercial shows a person buying a hamburger and getting the sandwich and realize the sandwich lack of a burger. And it showed the mature person look at the camera and say, where's the beef? When I look at this bill, on behalf of Minnesotans, with all due respect, I'm asking, where's the beef? It's missing. There's no beef. There's no substance. You're not going to get full off this sandwich. This sandwich leaves us all hungry. And whether you know it or not, Mr. President, I like to eat. And I like to eat well. But this bill lacks so much when we think in terms of equity investments, training for people of color, women, veterans, and even our young people. We talk a lot about how we want to prepare them for the future, and we want to create opportunities for them to think about what they want to be. Where's the beef? This bill lacks resources for our small businesses, budding entrepreneurs, and as I said before, businesses are in need of resources to grow. I could continue and go on and on, Mr. President, but the reality is simply this. We are facing a reality of not supporting the very people who are going to make us better. And you can't do that by looking backwards. I often tell my sons, there's a reason why the windshield in the front is bigger than the rear view mirror, because you can't keep looking back. You have to look forward. And if we were to look at this bill that is before us, we're still looking backwards. And that is a problem. So I know that the author wants to face the reality of this bill's shortcoming by saying what was done last year and proclaiming this is not a budget year. That doesn't pass the smell test, because Minnesotans have needs today. And so unfortunately, this bill has some provisions that creates unsettledness. So I talked about what's missing, and I'm sure other people will talk about what's missing, but there's some provisions in here that should not be in here. And so with that being said, Mr. President, I offer the A11 amendment.
Senator Champion offers the A11 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Champion moves to amend Senate File Number 4091 as follows. Page 51, delete Section 13. This is the A11 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Champion.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment is quite simple. In the bill, you see that there's language around wage theft. And I must remind the body that there was a coalition that got together, and there was some language that was agreed upon, and that language passed. It passed because there was agreement. The parties got a chance to get together and talk about the importance of wage theft. And I believe that this amendment removes language in the bill that reduces penalties on businesses who commit theft by stealing earned wages from employees. Contrary to the author's words, there's no reform here. There's only one opinion that's in this bill, and that's not how we think things should go forward. The penalty should be significant. The penalties can't just be counted as the cost of doing business. We need them to be more significant than the actual theft to deter bad actors. Think about young people who are working, or folks who are trying to make a wage in order to support their families, and there's some bad actor who's taking their wages. Most of the impacted workers come from vulnerable populations. They can't afford to go without pay. Most Minnesotans live paycheck to paycheck. They can't afford to earn a salary that is never paid. Statute already has a significant grace period included in the statute. So, Mr. President, I'm asking the body to support the efforts of removing this unfortunate language, and when the author and the coalition comes together and reach language that makes sense or agree upon language, then bring it back for us. This particular provision is not ready for prime time. So thank you, Mr. President.